Notational analysis in biomechanics. Biomechanics in sport is the science of performers' movements, including how muscles, bones, tendons and ligaments work together to produce movement. Biomechanics can be applied to support performers and solve issues. This might involve developing equipment to aid the performer, helping performers use the optimal technique, or ensuring that the performer is not putting themselves at risk of injury during a sporting movement. Studying someone's biomechanics can help to enhance their performance or reduce the risk of injury, which is why it is very important for the progression of sport. Notational analysis is the study of movement patterns, strategy, and tactics in sport. The process of notational analysis involves observing a performance, taking notes, and collecting data based off of that performance, and then evaluating and analysing the information that is gathered. As a result of this, successful patterns of play and the strengths and weaknesses of teams and individuals can be identified and used in following matches and games to improve their performance. The use of performance indicators in notational analysis provides observers or coaches with measurable values that demonstrate how effective a certain player, tactic, or technique is. This might mean that they focus on a specific set of skills in observation. The content being observed has to be objective for this to work. The performance indicators you analyse will be specific to that sport and therefore may not apply to all sports. Notational analysis is used across the world in various different sports due to its effective outcomes. However, it hasn't always been this easy to do. For example, in 1977, Sanders used manual notational analysis on squash games and players. This involved hours of work and over 30 pages of information, which clearly was not a very effective method. Later, in 1987, Hughes began tactical analysis of tennis players. Hughes used a computer for this, which made his data easier to read and made the process a lot quicker. Now we use notational analysis effectively in a wide variety of sports. Advanced technology is used by specialists in this field to determine quick and effective results. In notational analysis, you can analyse three factors. That's movement, technique, and tactics. When analysing movement, you are studying how the performer moves, the total distance covered, and the time it takes for them to react and make a movement. This gives the coach an understanding of the performer's fitness levels and where they've been on the pitch or court, enabling the coach to give advice about how the performer can adjust their movement patterns to achieve more success. For example, movement patterns are very important in netball as the court is a lot more confined than a football pitch. Analysing players' movements in netball might determine whether the coach deems that player fit to play or not. In tactical analysis, relationships of the game can be analysed and exposed, and the paths travelled by both players and balls can be analysed. Tactics might include a formation, specific free kicks, corners, or any other set plays. Analysing the effectiveness of tactics enables the coach to determine which ones they should use in future games or which tactics need work. A coach may also perform tactical analysis of their opponents so that they can predict what the opposition will do in the game and prepare to counter it. Tactical analysis is very popular in football at the moment, where it is often used in the breaks at half-time to give TV viewers an insight into what the teams have been doing tactically and where those tactics have worked or failed. Technical analysis uses quantitative data to define the number of failed attempts compared to the number of successful attempts. This might be in the form of statistics or percentages. This allows a coach to work with objective data to focus on very specific areas of weakness. For example, a baseball coach might look at the technique of their pitcher when pitching. The coach would look at how many strikes they forced on the opposition, perhaps the speed of the pitch, or if they did any illegal pitches. This would help the coach determine a success to failure ratio, or percentage, which they can use to determine whether pitching is something they need to work on in training. The performance criteria for basketball depends on the position. Small forwards are typically shorter, quicker, and leaner than power forwards or centres, but typically taller and larger than either of the guard positions. They are arguably the most versatile player on the court, as they have to involve every skill in their performance. The main performance criteria for this role includes 2-pointers, 3-pointers, defensive rebounds, blocking, and steals. A 2-pointer is a shot from inside or on the 3-point line, worth 2 points if it is made. This is typically used when the player has strategically played into that area with the intention of taking a shot. A 3-pointer is a shot made from beyond the 3-point line. You gain 3 points if you're successful. 3-pointers are mostly used in a scenario where you find yourself open or unmarked outside the 3-point line, or when none of your teammates are free inside the 3-point line. A defensive rebound occurs when the defense obtains the possession of the ball from the opposition's shot. This would take place when the opposition directly misses or the ball rebounds off of the backboard, allowing you to gain possession and begin a counter-attack. A block is when the defensive player legally deflects or obstructs a shot attempt from the offensive player to prevent them scoring. For this to be legal, the player must not make contact with the opponent's hand. This form of block would only be used when the opposition looks to be taking a shot, and therefore is less likely to be used when in your own offensive half. A steal occurs when the defensive player legally caused a turnover or gains possession. This might be by deflecting, catching, or controlling the offensive player's pass or dribble. This would be used all over the court, as it's more likely to be of success when in a crowded area where it is more difficult for the offensive player to pass you. All of these skills combine to create a complex role for a small forward, as they have to perform a variety of skills in order to maintain control of the game and fulfill their role. Notational analysis can be done live or by recording a performance and watching it back. Live analysis involves watching a live performance and recording the data as you go, whereas video analysis involves recording a performance and watching it back at a later date. This enables you to pause it and rewind, giving you more accurate results. To do notational analysis, you need a data collection sheet that shows all the skills you wish to assess. From this, you can begin to tally each time the performer is successful or unsuccessful in performing this skill. Once finished, you can analyse the data you gathered and give the performer statistics and feedback that they can use to improve their performance in future games. All you really need for notational analysis at lower levels is a data collection sheet and a pen if you're doing it live, with the addition of software to watch it or record it if you're doing video analysis. However, the software needed becomes a lot more numbered and advanced as the performance level increases. One advantage of notational analysis is that it allows you to look at multiple aspects of the game. This means that a coach can look at the data provided and determine what tactics are working, what skills certain players need to improve on, and who should be playing in each role within the team. The analysis allows a coach to look at specific strengths and weaknesses in both an individual and the team as a whole. Furthermore, this allows the coach to adjust their training to improve on those weaknesses and have less focus on their stronger areas that don't need as much work. Notational analysis can also help decide players' roles or positions in the team. In basketball, for example, if you noticed in your analysis that your point guard is making lots of unsuccessful dribbles, the coach knows to put a different point guard in, as dribbling is a key part to that position. Another advantage of notational analysis is the option of video analysis. Video analysis allows you to pause or slow down the video while you write notes down. This means that you don't miss anything, which also makes your findings more accurate. On the other hand, there are also some disadvantages to notational analysis. For example, live analysis on some sports like squash or tennis can be difficult to follow. This is because there are less players, so the player you are analysing is constantly involved. This makes it easy to miss things, as your player is likely to be involved during the time you're writing down previous information, which could result in inaccurate information. Manual notational analysis can also be time-consuming. Having to physically handwrite each observation you make takes time that could be spent making improvements to players there and then. In addition to this, notational analysis can be expensive. If you don't do it manually, the software required can be very expensive. Some clubs and teams simply don't have this money to put towards the software. Here I have collected data on a performance in a data collection sheet. This form of quantitative data allows you to gather data on a variety of different skills, which can later be developed into graphs for analysis of those performance indicators. I have also tracked the performer's movement by following each movement with my pen on a printed basketball court. This is called a schematic, and it allows you to analyse where the movement was concentrated and the distance they covered. In this case, my performer covered 1,300 metres, which is fairly low compared to the team average of 1,696 metres. After collecting data from a performance into a data collection sheet, it is suggested that the information is put into a graph. This is a clear way of displaying data as it shows visual differences as opposed to a lot of meaningless numbers in a table. Here I have identified 5 key performance indicators for basketball. I looked at 2 players' performances and compared them to the team averages. The first player, Lou, who I will call Performer 1, is shown to be above average in most aspects, whereas Performer 2, Megan, is below average in most skills. Figure 1 shows the number of 3-pointers scored and missed by both performers, and compares these numbers to the team's average. Performer 1 is above average, scoring 2 and missing 0, having a 100% success rate, compared to the average of 0.153 scored and 0.538 missed. Performer 2 is below average, scoring 0 and missing 0. However, the reason Performer 2 didn't score any is because they didn't attempt any. This might be more of an issue regarding confidence as opposed to technique. Figure 2 shows the number of 2-pointers scored and missed, and compares the performers to the team averages. Performer 1 is above average, scoring 2 and missing 0, compared to the average of 0.6 scored and 1.2 missed. Performer 2 is below average, scoring 2 and missing 1. Figure 3 displays the number of steals made, and again compares the performers to the team averages. Performer 1 is above average, completing 2 compared to the average of 1.3. Performer 2 is below average, completing 1. In Figure 4, I have focused on the performer's defensive rebounds and again compared the performers to the team averages. Performer 1 is well above average, completing 3 compared to the average of 0.692. Performer 2 is below average, completing 0, showing that defensive rebounds are a weakness for them. In Figure 5, I have focused on the performer's blocks, comparing the performers to the team averages. Performer 1 is above average, completing 2, compared to the average of 0.6. Performer 2 is also above average, completing 2. I also tracked and analysed the whole team's data. This enabled me to look at the team's strengths and weaknesses that they can work on as a group in training. In this case, where my focus is on individuals, team data allows me to determine averages and compare the player to those averages. Furthermore, this means I can determine the areas where the player is above or below average and give them feedback as an individual as to where they're behind or ahead of their team. In Figure 6, I looked at the correlation between height and the number of defensive rebounds made. The yellow dot represents Lou, or Performer 1, and the red dot represents Megan, or Performer 2. The result of this was an R value of 0.71 and a P value of 0.006. The R value of 0.71 means that there is a fairly strong positive correlation between height and the number of defensive rebounds. The P value of 0.006 shows that the correlation is statistically significant, as a P value of less than 0.05 is seen as significant. This would therefore show that Performer 1's height may give them an advantage over Performer 2. In Figure 7, I looked at the difference in the number of defensive rebounds made in the live game against the recorded game. The blue line is live and the red line is a video analysis. In the live game, the mean number of defensive rebounds was 0.69 and the standard deviation was 0.95. In the video recorded game, the mean number of defensive rebounds was 0.92 and the standard deviation was 1.12. This means that on average, the number of defensive rebounds completed was higher in the video recorded game. It also means that the numbers were more spread out and dispersed in the live game. This therefore means that whilst on average the video recording had higher scorers, the live game was more consistent with all players getting more similar results than in the video.